So we'll be previewing the final on Saturday's episode, of course, but we wanted to answer some of your burning questions after last night's semi-final. Thank you so much to everyone who sent one in. First off, we've got one from the Football Ramble Discord. And remember, you can sign up to the Football Ramble Patreon for ad-free editions of every single episode of Upfront, as well as access to the Discord. The link is in the show notes. We had Jimmy to the B, love that name, asking, do we actually have a chance? Really great question to kick us off there. And there was a related question from Chris on Discord too. He said, has this Germany game made us feel better about our chances? I mean, do we actually have a chance? 100% we do. Like, we have
every team has
Spain.
A chance.
Yeah, 100%. Like, we're not going into this as the underdogs, I don't think. I think it's a get. No?
Yeah,
would you?
I disagree.
Rachel!
I think of the two, England are the underdogs.
Rachel, take that back. No, I don't
100%.
know. I don't agree with that. I think it's a really finely balanced game in the same way that, yes, I think obviously there's been a Spain dominance, but like Spain in the Germany game, I was thinking actually it's going to be sort of fairly finely balanced. Either one of those teams could go through. I think if I was going to say on balance, like a 52% who's going to win, I probably logically think it would be Spain. But I think it is a very 50-50 matchup. Like we've seen England and Spain go head-to-head countless times this past year. The results have been completely a mixed bag. I think we've seen England beat Spain in a Euros before to get to the semi-finals, wasn't it? It was in the quarterfinals. And I don't know, there's something about tournament football that just produces these unexpected, you don't know what's going to happen kind of moments. And I think especially in finals, obviously it didn't go to plan for the World Cup. But at the same time, yeah, look at the strength of what we can produce. But then the part of me is like, God, look at the results that we've actually had in this tournament and how we've played and how many issues that we've had and how we haven't really problem solved in games. And actually, I think I'm kind of steering myself out of being confident, Rach. You've done that to me, mate.
I think the world champions are always the favourites in the follow-up Euros. Like, Spain have been favourites since the start of the tournament. Throughout the tournament, they've been favourites. That doesn't change because it's England in the final. The same way that England were favourites in the World Cup final, even though they didn't have a brilliant World Cup, they were European champions, they were up against Spain, they were the favourites. I just think that's not a huge surprise. I think the fact that, you know, I think for England, seeing Spain challenged in the way they were against Germany will give them confidence as well. I think Germany exposed some areas, exploited some areas, and showed what you needed, I think, to perhaps get at Spain, being that gritty, resilient, determined, disciplined. It's a hard thing to be, and it's a hard thing to be after 107 minutes playing with 10 players against France, which I actually think, and I said it in the pod, was quite good preparation for Germany to know how to be out of possession and really disciplined. I think both teams know each other. I think that's a really interesting thing. And I know everyone's going to look back at how they've played so far, etc., etc. Tournament football is a different beast to club football. Like, form isn't really not that it's not important, but like once you're at a final, nothing else matters. Whatever's gone before doesn't matter. No one's thinking about how they played against France. They're not sat in the hotel still reviewing the France game or thinking about the Netherlands or could they have scored more against Wales. None of that is in their minds. Like, all they're thinking about is Spain, the next game, single game, one game, knockout game. So anything can happen. I think if you're looking at form of both teams throughout the tournament, yes, you're going to think Spain are definitely favourites, in my opinion. I think the win for them in the semi-final, getting to a final for the first time, all big things that are going to give them a real boost. Both have played extra time, which I think is really interesting. But
we do have an extra day of recovery.
That's what I was about to say. England have an extra day of recovery. You know, you're going to take all the little small things from wherever you can get them. All of those little percentages are massive. You know, I think maybe Mariona will be spilling all the secrets about the players that she knows about Chloe Kelly, about Beth Mead. You know, I think as well you got to factor in, like, England came into this with, like, and maybe this is something that's forgotten a little bit, but with 3 players where you were like, oh, thank God they're back in time, right? Like, in terms of fitness, in terms of how much game time they've had, and they've been quite integral to England in this tournament, which I think has been quite impressive. Then you've got players who were playing right up until the Champions League final, didn't have that much time off, same with Spain, right? You've got players who've played right up until the Champions League final. Like, God, they must be tired. Like, part of me thought, if this game goes to extra time, we're going to have like a walking final, a walking football final. I think that both sides will just agree to like, let's just play this first half at 50%. And obviously Spain don't have that in their locker. They only go like one speed, and that's 100 miles an hour. So, yeah, I think it's an intriguing one. It's a single game. It's an isolated game. There's always favourites. Anything can happen. For me, I do think Spain are more likely, and I'd very happily be wrong.
I think weirdly enough, the Germany game has made me feel at least a lot worse about our chances. I think it's like the point that you were making before, Rach, about the patience that Spain have, and that kind of belief, I think, that at some point, like, they will break through and they will create a chance that's going to result in a goal. And I think, obviously, like with England, like we've seen how like drawn out the games can become, how England, I think the more they grow into the game sometimes and get frustrated that they haven't scored a goal, I think sometimes that seems to almost deflate them, or we have seen it deflate them in the past. I know, obviously, said like there is a clean slate for finals, but I think it's going to be, if there is that deadlock and there is that frustration and we are seeing that 0-0 result starting to creep into like a 70 or an 80 minutes, like which way is it going to take you? Is it going to take you in the Spain direction, which is it spurs you on, or is it going to take you in the England direction, which I think there was a creeping sense of like dejectedness as the game was happening. And then as soon as like you get to like the absolute dying minutes, like the really critical minutes, like last gasp attempts, that's when I think we've seen England then pick it up and go, fucking hell, like we've got a matter of seconds left, we need to do something.
I'd like to think a final against Spain is not something you're going to be passive and not brave in, and I think they'll recognise that. I mean, we'll have to chat a bit. If you look at a question from Hannah here on Instagram, how do you think England will shape up? Like, and we can go into more detail in the preview. In an ideal world, I would love Sarina to go rogue, 3 at the back, 2 up front, two number 9s essentially, I think would be difficult for Spain to handle. You know, starting Lessie, maybe starting Agyemang, I just think would make it more difficult. And then having that, I
love how you come round to an Agyemang start. I love it.
At this stage, win the game fucking early. I can't do another one of these things like waiting until the last.
It would be interesting to see though. Agyemang start. It would be her first like.
But you know what? Even if she doesn't start, just 2 up front would be so interesting in terms of like, and then having a 3, like a 5 at the back out of possession gives you that extra defensive cover. I just think would be really interesting. But do you think maybe we're just going to see like, I don't know, the same team that lined up against France?
I mean, we know what Sarina can be like in terms of consistency, and like we have seen pretty much the same lineup for the past 3 games. Obviously, we did have Esme Morgan dropping in for Carter, but I don't think I see any kind of particular changes. And I think we do have a question in, are we worried, this is from Jamie on X, are we worried about LJ's fitness? And I think this kind of feeds into like the changes that we could see happening. If LJ isn't fit, then yes, I do see obviously someone coming in to replace that, or maybe even Ella Toone coming in to kind of go further up top and then bringing a midfielder in.
Depends on the formation, doesn't it? And I think it also depends on how England want to approach the game and whether they want to draw it out and try and stop Spain scoring and then bring on a game changer. And LJ is a game changer. She's the key that can unlock defences, you know, or whether you want to be creative and trying to go for goals earlier on and maybe not put us all through this incredibly stressful watching of a football match, and you want to do that early. So the thing is, I'm not sure if LJ will necessarily look. I hope her foot's okay. She's had 2 knocks in it now. So whether, and that's another example, like we had that's a player that came in who we weren't sure would be able to play 90 minutes. Like, you factor, that's a really important player for England, which is kind of forgotten about a little bit. So she may not be fully fit. I guess it's knowing when to play that card, and that would be really interesting.
No, definitely. And I think obviously a lot of people have been calling for Chloe Kelly to start. That could also be an alternative. I didn't think Beth Mead was that effective up top when she came in for the last game.
Do you know what though? She was so good when she had to play out of position. She played in 10 at one point. I think what I thought she did really well when she had to like just do a job that wasn't her job. And I think you get that from a player like Beth Mead, which was super impressive. Like, people were calling for Lauren Hemp to be off the pitch in the first half. Suddenly she's playing left wing back and she was so important in that position. So yeah, it makes it super interesting. I think the thing about Chloe Kelly is she gets an awful lot of energy about being the one that's going to come on and change the game.
Definitely.
And I don't know if you'll get that energy when you're
From the
starting.
start.
Yeah, whereas if you can say to her, right, we need you to come on and change the game, she's like, stand out of my way, I got this. And I think
Look,
that's
you
quite
big
important.
hero, come on.
Yeah, I think that's quite important for her.
I think the same thing a little bit at the moment with Michelle Agyemang. I think there's like a pairing that we're starting to see about like, and the crowd, obviously, as soon as they start to see them warming up, there's like a galvanization with the crowd and the fans like starting to get excited about like the prospect of what they can do. And because the expectation has been high on them both, but then they're delivered on both occasions, the expectation is going to be even higher going into this game. Are they again brought on as impact subs? So I do think they're a little bit of a back pocket kind of player, a kind of like you pull them out, you're kind of aces, I suppose. But at the same time, I do see a Chloe Kelly start. I see a little bit of a change around depending on what's happening with LJ. So pending. We've got another question in from Shelby on Instagram. Could less possession actually benefit England as it reduces their vulnerability to counterattacks? That's a really nice question.
It is, and I think this kind of happened in the World Cup and it happened in the quarterfinal of the Euros, is that, you know, people love a team that play possession. They just think it's the most incredible thing. It's so difficult to play without the ball and to be switched on for 90 minutes without the ball. That is such a difficult thing to do. And that's why Spain pull teams apart, because teams find it very, very difficult to be switched on mentally to be able to do that, but also fit enough to do that. Arguably, England should be fit enough to do that. They know, they've done it before. They know how to play without the ball. My concern a little bit is the switched on for 90 minutes, potentially 120 minutes, because I think there have been lapses at times, particularly defensively for England in this tournament. So yes, I guess it does reduce that potential of counter-attack. It's whether if they're playing back four, your full-backs are getting up too high. Spain are going to absolutely capitalise on that. If Lucy's disappeared up the pitch, you think back to that World Cup where she lost the ball in a really difficult area for England, and straight away Spain were like, cool, there's a space, ping, goal. So it's that discipline, and it's, you know, cutting out the opportunities, preventing those spaces for Spain to play into. So yeah, potentially, I think, you know, we saw it with the Italy game where England were pushing for a goal and leave spaces in behind, and better teams can capitalise on that. But it's, yeah, are they going to start the game to try and get goals, or are they going to sit and then go for the counter?
I think we've seen so much success, though, from teams who have brought the game to Spain. Like we saw a little bit with the Switzerland game and kind of how they came out of the blocks, kind of wanting to press and kind of go all guns blazing. I appreciate that's not something that can be sustained for the entire 90 minutes against a Spain squad, but like that has been effective in periods of attack throughout the games. But I think the issue is, I suppose, with England not having as much possession, is that you don't then have enough possession to create chances yourself. So 100% understand there has to be like a patience with the Spain squad, and that you're not going to get as much of the ball as you would have liked. Like chances are Spain are going to have at least maybe 60% of the possession on a good day, but at the same time then you really have to kind of focus on when you're going to create those chances and how they're going to happen. Yeah, and I think we've seen that vulnerability with Spain kind of committing bodies forwards and going up and kind of, you know, creating those counter-attacking moments. But you've really got to then rely on those moments to kind of, because you have to score. Like you have to score to win. Like unless you want to take this to penalties, you have to be creating those chances. And like that's it at the end of the day. Like we see,
it's what happened to Germany.
Yeah, all day. So I think
they were wasteful.
Yes, I think you're less susceptible to goals, but in terms of actually creating those chances,
reduces your actual likelihood of scoring.
That's the problem, shall we? We've got another question in from Dead Fox on the Football Ramble Discord. Do we reckon Sassy Viggs stays regardless of the result? We did have a spicy pre-pod chat about this one, because there has been a lot of narrative about, you know, the way in which the Lionesses have been playing recently. I think in the past year we have obviously seen some quite inconsistent performances, people not thinking that the Lionesses are performing to the standard that they expect from them. Obviously I think the expectation on the Lionesses has been super incredibly, almost like heroic, godlike status high since the Euro 2022. And I think obviously there were some super good performances in the Women's World Cup, but there was also, even though we got to the final, there was also a lot of criticism about the way in which we got there. And I think I see the same narratives with this competition, that we've managed to get to our third successive major tournament final, but at the same time, the way in which we've got there isn't good enough. And I think a lot of people say, well, actually, like we had even though the group stage was fairly difficult in that we had the
death.
Netherlands. We had the Netherlands and France, obviously strong opposition there. Essentially, our route, I suppose, up from the group stage to the final has been a little bit not easier, but like if you'd have picked teams out of the hat that you would have wanted England to face, you probably would have chosen a couple of them. But at the same time,
you could say the same for Spain.
Yeah, 100%. But do you think this is enough to kind of ask questions about Sarina's leadership and the way in which she's managed the squad over the few years that she's been in charge now?
No, I think sometimes we get so, because our jobs are to break down games and why teams are playing this way or not that way and why they're not perfect all the time, and we get so into the weeds of it. And what's been quite nice about this tournament, not that social media is often a nice place, but there's been a lot of people who perhaps don't watch the Lionesses all of the time and don't watch women's football all of the time, and have come on and been like, bloody hell, we're in another major tournament final. This is incredible. Like, who gets that? Who gets to see, unless you're the USA, when they were at every major tournament, winning things, incredible. That is such a rarity. And it's really nice it's so refreshing to see people being like, this is amazing. Like, England have not been in anything less than a semi-final in a major tournament since 2015. That's an incredible feat. And for a manager, Sarina Wiegman, 5 major tournament finals in a row is incredible. Like, surely she's got to be one of the best managers out there. So for me, I think, yes, I understand the scrutiny. I understand they haven't played their best football. They haven't played brilliantly. And that happens in tournament football sometimes. I think sometimes there's an expectation of form in tournament football needs to be perfect. And that's just not the case sometimes. Tournament football is a different beast. You get your tactics wrong sometimes. You get player injuries sometimes. Sometimes the other team are just better and they have your number tactically. The fact is, England are still getting through and still winning games and are still in a final. That should be the thing that's the most important thing ultimately. When we're going to turn around to a manager and be like, I'm sorry, it's just not good enough that you've got to a final for the 3rd time. So actually we're going to terminate your contract. I think if Sarina leaves, it's going to be on Sarina's terms. And I think whatever happens, even if they're battered, Sarina has earned the right to choose when she goes, because she won England their first major tournament and got into a World Cup final. Like, I don't know how you can be unhappy with how they have, I guess, grown in such a short space of time. So
just playing devil's advocate though on the fact that Sarina has reached the final with the squad, there's definitely been moments in the game where we've had to both question the decisions that Sarina's made. Like, so for example, not bringing on subs until the 85th minute in the last game. I mean, that was a really risky roll of the dice, and like that was a pure moment of magic that kind of created that opportunity. And like likewise really with the Sweden game as well. So there does feel like there's an element of luck there that we've actually that we could have been out in the quarterfinals very, very easily. Like, I don't necessarily think that, and that's kind of almost not because Sarina did that. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I understand that, and I think, like teams, managers aren't going to get every decision right all the time, and their backroom staff aren't going to get every decision right all the time. And I think the expectation for every single tactic to be spot on every single time is naive. At the end of the day, they're human. They're reacting to what's happening in front of them. Arguably, games don't go to your game plan. How do you react to that? Teams who haven't challenged in the past are challenging now. How do you adapt to that? And I think it's a constant learning. Yes, they've won a major tournament. Yes, she's gotten to 5 finals in a row. Everyone else hasn't stayed the same. Everyone else's levels have increased. Managers' levels have increased. Tactics have improved. And it's a constant learning. So yeah, it's not going to be perfect. And I think perhaps the problem is the standards and the expectations are so high now that nothing less will do. And the fact that England are not playing well and still in a final, and yeah, you can call it luck, but if you're going to apply luck to England, you can go across loads of teams during the tournament and say, what if this didn't happen? What if that didn't happen? What if Germany had missed that penalty? What if AKB hadn't made that save? You can't just attribute luck to one team and forget everybody else's journey. So yeah, I think, have England been lucky in the manner that they've got through? Absolutely. But that's tournament football and they're still through. So for me, I find that a really unusual narrative. And I've seen people who aren't from England being like, how are you questioning this? Like, what is wrong with you guys? Like, you're in a final again. Like, just enjoy it, for Christ's sake.
It's never enough. It's like the weather. We're not happy when it's sunny and we're not happy when
hot.
it's raining.